when you have other people, other communities that are setting up good cultures to actually thrive in, good environments to thrive in, then that can help you become a better self as well. Welcome to Out of the Box podcast, where Steele and I, your host, get to talk about outside of the box ideas. Today, we're going to be talking about friendships, how to build community, why is community important in your life, specifically in the area of perseverance and discipline. Why do you need a family or a group of people to help you in a specific area? And so before we actually start, I want to invite you down below to subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell sign so you are notified when we put up new videos weekly. Also, if you do like what we talk about during this podcast, feel free to let us know what you thought was interesting. Maybe put a timestamp down below of maybe a specific minute or moment that you thought was really interesting and mind-boggling. So without further ado, let's get started. So a little bit about what we kind of had in mind about this topic was specifically derived from the area of perseverance that we talked about before in one of our podcasts. And so we kind of wanted to go deeper into why communities are important and maybe even a little bit of background from Steele's psychology side of why we should have friends and maybe even what we should identify when we're making friends and choosing friends to hang out with and stuff like that. So kind of going off of that, the perseverance side, I have been reading this book that's called Grit. I kind of mentioned it before in our podcast. And so the book about grit has an aspect and a part in it that talks about how certain people can develop a sense of discipline or adopt different cultural behaviors due to the community that they live in, right? So a lot of people have heard the saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, right? And I think it comes to be true to a certain degree because our life can sometimes be identified by the five people that we hang out with the most, right? Just because identity and who we are tends to be sometimes derived from who we hang out with. People confirm, they reconfirm, and they sometimes renew the perspective that we sometimes create for ourselves of what we believe to be true about who we are, right? And so if that is to be true, then it makes sense that, people who we hang out with are also affecting what we're believing about ourselves to be true and to be possible as well. So just to start off, I wanted to kind of talk about how in the book, it kind of mentions how people from, for example, West Point, when people talk about West Point culture, it's very rigorous, it's very disciplined, it's really hard, both mentally and physically, for a lot of people, even emotionally. And so for those people who actually get through the process of training, they almost develop a sense of ownership of the culture that they embody, right? As they carry themselves out. And so they feel almost part of something great, which is West Point, right? And West Point in itself is just buildings. It's just an area. It's a training ground. But to a lot of people, it becomes almost family, it becomes who they are, it becomes a culture, right? And it's so interesting how, for a lot of newcomers, a lot of new people that are entering the program and actually make it through, it becomes, part of who they are. And moving on in their life, they hold that to be true, right? Because their actions are aligned to what they believe about themselves because it's reconfirmed by the people that they're surrounded with. right? So the people around them wake up at 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, or whatever time that they wake up, but it becomes a norm because other people are doing it as well. So I tried this experiment out yesterday. I actually went to an amusement park and rode some roller coasters. Now I'm not the kind of person to actually raise my hands when I go down a drop, but just to kind of show the example, I went with one of my cousins and my brother, and we made this commitment that we were going to raise our hands in every drop, no matter what, right? And so, in just a micro example, what we did is we set a standard. We said that this was something that we were going to do no matter what. And so, since we had somebody else that was accountable to what we had said that we were going to do, there was more pressure to actually do it than if it was just by myself trying to do it, right? If I would have said like, well, well, maybe this time I won't raise my hands because, hey, who's keeping track, right? Like not everyone has their hands up, so it's okay if I put mine down, right? But if you have somebody else there accountable to what you're trying to achieve, then that community aspect gives you the opportunity to go beyond your capabilities, right? It But not just for the moment, but continuously, right? If you do decide to keep that and grow that community. So any thoughts about that, Steele?
Yeah, so you're talking about community and how having other people can make a difference in some way, maybe,
Yeah.
psychologically. No, but like, yeah, like I think, well, in some sense, community, the broader thing, right? Society, community, and then like groups that you hang out with, maybe. Um, I think there can be positive and negatives. Just like there's positive and negatives to anything in life. If you hang with the wrong group, you're more likely to fall into their behaviors, negative behaviors maybe. Um, if you hang with like a more like a group that doesn't, do certain things, and you're less likely to do certain things. That's just kind of like the nature of, I guess it's the nature of peer influence. It's the nature of the in group versus the out group. But in terms of like community itself, I used to not see community as important as maybe I do, now, or at least at same areas when I started realizing the importance of it. The same areas, man, we both know that was a great community. Like the community there
Yeah.
was uplifting and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like it's a different environment, man. I don't know how to explain it. It's just
Yeah. It's almost like a little bubble in the whole
yeah,
world. Yeah.
microcosm of society, a miniature
Yeah.
society. But having a positive community like St. Mary's, for example, it does affect the way you see the world. It did affect the way I saw the world compared to moving back, to hometown or something. Like my mood was lifted at St. Mary's. I felt more connected to people like around me. I felt more related to people around me in some way because people were on the same level, like not just like religiously or spiritually. And there's a variety. Not everyone was like believing in God there, but like enough to where it was you felt like you knew a lot of people who were, and they actually strengthened my beliefs in different areas and enhanced them and changed them and modified them. So like, yeah, it's crazy how community can have that effect on the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think that shows the importance of a positive community, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost, whenever you have that type of community, you don't want to step outside of the lines that they have already created. It's a culture, right? That's why
Yeah.
you see some companies grow, because they created a really good company culture, right? I think sometimes culture is very underestimated in communities, right? Because every community, whether it be a small community like a family, or a community like a company, or like a community in terms of just friends that you hang out with together, um any type of community develops some sort of culture. And sometimes you see that in companies, like they have the main culture, but then each department has a different culture, right? Maybe the sales department is a little bit more strict than the marketing department. Maybe the marketing is just kind of like a little bit more laxed. If you come in late, it's okay,
Yeah.
and so sometimes even within the same company, you develop different cultures. But going back to the importance of community, you know, I think it's also sane for people to have culture, right? Because if you don't have culture, you know, and one is just trying to develop by themselves, have their own culture, you know, or what would you call that? Your own identity or, you know, your standards. But when you have other people, other communities that are setting up good cultures to actually thrive in, good environments to thrive in, then that can help you become a better self as well, right?
Yeah, if it's a positive culture, and just like anything in life, negative and positives. Like a negative culture could bring people down. Uh, it could lead to negative consequences. I don't know. I'm just trying to think like off the top of my head, but like, uh, and it's fascinating because in community and culture, if we're gonna talk about culture, there's cultural norms. So like the culture norms are rules, implicit rules that aren't really spoken out loud, but we all just kind of follow from following each other's behavior, and we learn them growing up, kind of thing. Or even if we come to a new culture, we start picking up on them. Um, so yeah, I mean that also plays a role. Like you were mentioning earlier, like we feel like in a workplace, there's certain rules. That's kind of like cultural norms. Those are the rules,
Hmm.
follow.
Yeah, and I think the community itself provides structure, right, for oneself.
Structure
It
with
provides,
yeah,
yeah, it helps you stay sane as well, right? Not only because of the social aspect that we need human interaction, right? At least the majority of people do, but also community itself provides some structure to one's life because then, and I think it comes it brings it back to like more ethical aspects of things, right? Because when if we don't have a culture or rules in itself, then anything is possible. Then, you know, I could just do whatever I want, right?
using the chaos.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and but I
chaos is
think
a sign of
that's,
structure.
yeah. So communities in itself, you know, good communities can provide good structure for people to actually thrive in
Yeah, so
too.
so you've identified different things. One thing we both have, structure is one good thing that comes out of community, and then I mean, I think you were hinting at earlier, like connection to other people, not being isolated, feeling connection, and then I think I talked about like just being uplifted by your community because it can affect your mood and psychological state in some way. So yeah, those are three things. Structure, uh, lifting up your mood. Yeah,
Mhm. And
preventing.
also create in itself developing like with the culture, I mean with the structure, some sort of culture that if you choose rightly can help your life depending on what you want to achieve as well, right?
Yeah,
Because if one wants to be a scientist, they're not going to join, you know, like a tap dancing community, right? That's not going to help them.
yeah,
You know, they have to you have to also choose, you know, rightly what kind of groups you want to associate yourself,
right.
because eventually those groups are going to be the ones that help you network, help you stay in track of what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't think people realize how powerful the powerful influences that groups really have on us as individuals. I mean, groups really do. They shape our thinking. They shape the norms that behaviors and attitudes that we develop. And those attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs that we develop from being in that group for a certain period of time develop and morph into manifest behaviors that we do, and that we act out in the real world, and then other people
Hmm.
react to those behaviors and form a perception of us based on behaviors that we develop and show because of the group that we're hanging out with. And then that ties back to self-fulfilling prophecy, because then like we project those behaviors that we learn from that group, the people around us react a certain way, and then the way we form ourself depends on how others react to us. And so then our development of self even becomes impacted by the behaviors we project that get reflected back onto the way people respond to those behaviors. And then, we take that in and incorporate that into our sense of self, and that affects the way we develop ourselves and the way others perceive us, I guess. So it's just so it's really complicated, honestly.
Yeah.
It-
But it's really interesting. It's not something we think about on a day-to-day basis, just because, when we're growing up, especially during the middle school, high school era time of our lives, we tend to gravitate to whatever group accepts us, right?
yeah,
You
it's,
know, if theater accepts me, well, then I'll go to that group.
yeah, there's
If
such a big flaw.
band,
We're
yeah,
desperate
whatever.
to be
Yeah, we're
accepted.
desperate to find that connection, the community aspect,
It's just
because
more
deep inside we know that it's needed, and unconsciously we look for it, right?
natural.
We look for acceptance, we look for community, we look for a group. But then we sometimes, if we don't find a group, or maybe we do find a group, but it's not the best of groups, that is trying to push you forward or get the best out of you. Maybe it's trying to take advantage of you, right? But sometimes we stay in those groups because we feel accepted, right?
Yeah,
And
and
so
so
it's
desperate.
almost like a weird cycle that becomes off of that.
Well, it's more painful to be alone. I think that's what happens, especially at a young age and developing, like the teen angst. They call it teen angst, but
Yeah,
it's a whole myriad of hormones and various negative feelings that come and go. And it's the first time you're experiencing that ever. And it's more painful to be alone than go with the first person who accepts you and that the
yeah.
first group that accepts you. So, of course, you don't want to leave that group or that person, even, because leaving that means being alone. And being alone at that age is painful. Yeah. I won't with
So
any. Yeah.
I guess what could be their solution for people during that time,
Yeah,
you
that's a
know,
hard question because
because you sometimes kind of fall into groups,
and
right? It's not like you choose them or you get to choose them.
it's a really
Sometimes it's like, well, it happened and I was with them, you
it's,
know?
yeah, it's a hard question because finding a new group, finding a new person is hard, so that if you can overcome that and figure out how to do that, then that's the challenge, I would say. It just depends on how it's affecting life, I guess, and all sorts of things, really.
Yeah. But in a way, I guess more as adults, we can kind of realize how, you know, groups in itself do affect how, we see the world. And if we do have the chance to choose them, then we have to choose wisely, right?
Right, right,
And also see, where is this going to lead me, right? Are these people actually looking to lead me to good, or are they looking to lead me to bad? And so we can realize that more as we're older, but as we're young, I mean, it's just trying to feel accepted, you know, to fulfill the gap of being alone, like you said.
right. Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts is like, yeah, it's a process. Yeah, it's a process of growing up and learning life lessons. We've all had life lessons. I mean, yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, guys, thank you for listening in to our podcast today. If you thought something was interesting about our podcast, please feel free to let us know. What are your experiences with communities? Have you ever experienced a really nurturing community that has helped you grow? What did that look like for your life? How did that make you persevere? We would definitely like to know down below in the comment section what your thoughts were on that. Also, if you like this video, please feel free to give us a like down below. It would really greatly help our channel so we can continue providing awesome outside of the box ideas. And also subscribe to our channel, because we're definitely committed to continue providing weekly content about outside of the box ideas. So feel free to subscribe to our channel, hit that bell sign so that you can also get notifications when we put up new content. But until next time, we will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.